What's good, folks? Welcome to another episode of Logicast, the Logical Gamers podcast. It's your boy Esoteric, and I'm here with Blanca Kong, Gunna Eos, and Hada Wolf. And today, we're going to be discussing the Nintendo Switch 2, any potential rumors that might have been stated pertaining to its release. And we're also going to kind of dig deep as to uh, what we are expecting from the Nintendo Switch 2, what the masses are expecting, and what has been potentially confirmed. Um, Before I reference the article that we are using from Polygon, just want to state that the Nintendo is quite the juggernaut currently, the Nintendo Switch 2. Um, it is selling, I think it's the third most sold console in history.
Second
It's
most.
second now. It beat the DS. Okay, according to Statista, it said it was like third, but congratulations to the Nintendo Switch. It's the second most. So my metrics are probably inaccurate at this point, but I have it stated here that it's the third most selling console at 142.5 million approximately sold units, which has escalated since. Um, the DS is currently at approximately 154, and the King, which is the PlayStation 2, is at 158. So I had no idea that Nintendo actually beat the DS. I knew that it would happen considering how long the Nintendo Switch has been around for. It was released in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. So it's been around for quite some years. It is what, seven now, which is going on eight. So that's
Yeah, it's old man in console years.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely old in console years. Um, so
So just to cut in real quick,
mhm.
as of according to a Gamer Rant article, which I can link to you and you can post on the description, PS2 is no longer the best-selling video game console of all time in the U.S.
Oh, okay,
Switch is
U.S.
the
Yes,
best-selling
yes.
console in the U.S. Globally, the PlayStation 2 still holds it, but
Mhm.
that could be lost within the next year. And this was published on December 18th of 2024. So this was just a few weeks ago.
Okay, okay, cool. Well, we're definitely going to add that to the description so you guys can look at it as a reference. The more you know. I had no idea. I was looking at it was either Statista or I believe it was GameSpot that stated that it was third. So I guess they need to update that article there. Um, anyways, moving forward, we're gonna go to this article here from Polygon, and it's titled "Nintendo Switch 2: The Big Questions." Essentially, as I stated earlier, it's an article that kind of digs deep into what's been confirmed regarding the Switch 2, what they are expecting to see or hoping to see for with the Switch 2, and just some other things that they also got into. Just to reference a few, right? They stated, here's what we definitely know about the Switch 2. The funniest one that they started off with first is that it exists. um, Another good one is that it's backwards compatible, which I am really excited for.
That's the biggest thing for me personally.
Oh yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Like the original Switch has quite the library of games, and all of us here are pretty much physical enthusiasts. So for this new console to be backwards compatible, it opened up avenues for potential sellings of the of our original Switch once we procure a Switch 2, or you can pretty much hand it over to a loved one who doesn't have a Switch or whatever. Whatever you want to do. Like the world is your oyster. It opens up options for you. Um, it will offer Nintendo Switch online services. I mean, that makes sense. Online is the future. That's how people play multiplayer games. No one really sits at each other's house, although I enjoy it personally. But nowadays, it's seldom for people to sit at each other's homes and play games together. Um, it will use Nintendo accounts. Okay, I mean that's nothing new. Excuse me there. And Nintendo will officially announce the console within its current fiscal year, before the end of March 2025. So currently it is um, the 2nd of January of 2025. So we're looking forward to hearing an announcement pertaining to the Nintendo Switch 2, if it's even called the Switch 2. Um, all right. So just a couple of things I'm going to name from. Here's what we think we know about the Switch 2. Okay. They're saying that it will be released in 2025. Nintendo planned to release it before the end of March, but there are indications that the deadline has slipped, and Nintendo is keen to avoid stock shortages to have launch software ready. Um, it will be compatible with some Switch accessories, including the original Joy-Con controllers, um, which will be great. That allows you to pretty much reuse any old hardware that you may have. It has a cartridge slot like the Switch and will support physical releases. I mean, in order for it to be backwards compatible, it should have a cartridge slot. I mean, that makes the most sense. You wouldn't need to really mention that if it was digital only. So, um, here's another one. It's larger with an 8-inch 1080p LCD screen. Um, I've played the OLED Nintendo Switch, and I think the screen is pretty good. It's a nice, sizable screen. So any bigger, I think it would be a little too much, in my opinion. But you never know. Um, Here's another one which I'm really looking forward to. In terms of power, it would be close to the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 home console generation. That's going to be really interesting because I want to see like the type of games that are going to be created for the Switch 2, especially the proprietary games like Mario, like Legend of Zelda, and so on and so forth. I want to see what they're gonna do with those hardware bumps. Um, and base storage will be 256 gigabytes. I think it should be bigger than that. Um, Expandable via the micro SD card. I'm hoping that there is a SD card slot. I did have a conversation with one of our friends earlier pertaining to that. Um, he thinks that it might not be. I think that there should be, for many number of reasons. We'll probably get into that later. And then moving forward, there's a couple of things that they say they definitely don't know about the Switch 2. How much it will cost. Knowing Nintendo, they've always tried to be fiscally friendly to their consumers. Try being the operative word. They've always been, as far as I recollect, they've always been the lesser of the consoles when it came to monetary assets. Like, I don't recall paying for a Nintendo console that costs more than like a PlayStation or Xbox console. Could be wrong, but I don't think that's the case, honestly. Um, we don't know the exact release date. We're not sure of any confirmed games, and we're not sure what the gimmicks will be. Um, so that is pretty much what I'm going to speak on for right now pertaining to the article. Um, so we could move forward with like questions pertaining to like what you guys expect of the Switch, what you guys are hoping for from the Switch, anything that kind of struck a chord with you guys that was mentioned in the article that you think would be a nice addition to the Switch, and so on and so forth. So, who wants to start?
I'll go. So, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff here. Obviously, this is stuff. This is kind of like the rumor mill. this is what if, so things are subject to change. But what is confirmed is like the first half of the article. Yeah, it exists. Shocker. Um, the biggest thing that kind of just solidified any doubts for me was the fact that it is backwards compatible with Nintendo Switch games, which I didn't think it wouldn't be backwards compatible, but it was nice to hear a definite confirmed from Nintendo response that yes, this new console will be backwards compatible because my Switch library is pretty beefy. I have a lot of Switch games. Um, and I would be a little annoyed, to say the least, if the Switch 2 comes out and they suddenly say, "Oh yeah, all those games for the Switch, yeah, you can't use them on the Switch anymore." Not even Sony, in all their hubris, has decided to do that. Right, the PlayStation 5 is still backwards with PlayStation 4. So if like the king of the high horse currently, Sony, isn't doing it, it would be odd if Nintendo did it, but not, but you know, not out of the realm of possibility because Nintendo just tends to do whatever they want and not really give a shit about what anybody else is doing. But anyway, I am glad that it is confirmed to be backwards compatible. Branching off of that, it it also was confirmed in that confirmation that the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be supporting physical media because if it has a slot to accept Nintendo Switch cartridges, that means that Nintendo Switch 2 games will more than likely also be physical. That's pretty reassuring to me personally because yeah, I do like to get my games physically, and the fact that now I know that more than likely the Switch 2 games will also release physically because it's going to have a cartridge slot for Switch games is reassuring because now I can kind of know that I can at least keep this physical train limping along with the likes of Sony and Microsoft kind of trying to get rid of physical media. At least I know for the next console generation in regards to Nintendo, I still have a physical option, which is nice. Obviously, it's going to use the same online service. It's going to use the same Nintendo accounts. I don't see why that would change. And now some of the things that we think we know. The fact that it's called Nintendo Switch 2, I don't know what you could call it. I kind of feel like that's a cheap name. I mean, it wouldn't be abnormal because the 3DS was just called the 3DS XL, and then we had the new 3DS. So, not abnormal of their naming conventions, but I don't know. It's whatever. Switch 2, Electric Boogaloo, whatever. Um, the fact that it's still going to be a hybrid console is not surprising. The Nintendo Switch has found great success by being a hybrid. So ever since they shut down the 3DS and kind of killed off their mainstay portable console, the Switch has kind of filled both of those markets with the portable market and the home console market. And with competitors coming along like the Steam Deck, and I know there's another one, the
ROG Ally, the RG Ally
yes,
X or something like that.
yeah, that one, the Ally. You
Mhm.
know, there are other portable consoles on the market. Again, not that I think Nintendo is actually aspiring to compete with those, because those are essentially handheld PCs, and the Switch is it's a console. Again, Nintendo works in its own world, and they don't really care what anyone outside is doing. So, but they have to acknowledge, and it has to be said, that there are other portable options other than the Nintendo Switch, and Sony has long abandoned portability. So it's kind of just Switch and these gaming PCs that we're seeing come up. So I'm not surprised it's going to keep the hybrid model. It's worked. It taps into both markets, so I don't see why they would abandon that to make it a purely handheld or purely um, household console. I don't see them doing that. The fact that these are rumored to be compatible with the Switch Joy-Cons, that's nice if that's true because these things aren't exactly cheap. And I know some people that buy different color Joy-Cons. So these are people that are owning like 8 different pairs of Joy-Cons because they come in different colors, and we have some special edition ones like Zelda and Animal Crossing. So, the fact that it doesn't invalidate that purchase is nice. Again, it's something they didn't have to do because fucking Sony, I go back to Sony, the PlayStation 4 controller doesn't work with the 5. So, they didn't have to do it, but they're doing it, which is nice. What I am kind of disappointed is the rumored LCD screen. I know some people don't care, but it does have to be stated that the OLED screen, because I'm using the Switch OLED model, it's a lot. It is a vastly better viewing experience if you're playing handheld to have an OLED screen as opposed to an LCD screen.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
for them to go to OLED and then back to LCD, I know why they're doing it because it's LCD is a cheaper screen than OLED, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see Switch 2 OLED version down the line. But just kind of sucks. I would have much rather them have just developed the console with an OLED screen, and I'd probably have to pay a little bit more. I personally be okay with that, but if this is true and they're going back to an LCD screen, kind of sucks. But what am I gonna do?
Oh, maybe they'll come out with two tiers when they release. Like the OLED versus the LCD screen. So I mean,
Possible.
these are all like speculations. I mean, they haven't made much announcements as of yet pertaining to it, like a full fledged Nintendo Direct, because I'm pretty sure that's gonna come
Yeah,
soon.
they're gonna have
You
a
know.
full direct completely dedicated to the Switch 2. That's coming for sure. And last but not least, before I pass it off, the fact that it's being rated in terms of like oomph in like horsepower to a Xbox One and a PlayStation 4, I've been hearing that for a while. So I'm gonna kind of like put more. I'm gonna take away some grains of salt from that and apply more sugar of truth. That's the new terminology that I made. Um, I'm gonna apply that to this. I think the Switch 2 will be as powerful as a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I I believe it, and I'm kind of cool with that. That means it'll run most games well, and I'm hoping it'll run some of the Switch library that's had some trouble on the Switch archetype. I'm hoping it runs those games better than it does currently. We'll see. That may or may not happen. But pretty much that's all we need to be. Like we've seen consoles like the PlayStation 4 Pro and high-end PCs. We've seen what these games look like, and they, in my opinion, have hit their graphical peak. One can make an argument that we've hit that peak a long time ago. So I don't need the Switch to be 4K, you know, fucking crazy ass lighting effects. I don't need all that. If it's just powerful enough to guarantee that my games run stable and maybe the next Pokemon game doesn't play like fucking Violet and Scarlet, that's all I ask for. So I think this is a nice sweet spot between um, power of the console while still making it affordable. Because like you said, Esoteric, Nintendo kind of is they've always been the console manufacturer that has made their consoles as affordable as possible so as many people as possible can get it. So I think this is a nice balance. They're not shooting for PlayStation 5, they're shooting for PlayStation 4, which will make it more affordable to the average Joe. And as far as me, I personally go, these systems don't need to be any better because we're getting prettier looking games that are mediocre at their core. So if we get decent looking games that are actual worthwhile titles, that's all that matters to me. So I'm gonna kind of vote that this is more than likely the case in terms of its power and like what it's got under the hood. And I'm fine. Like I'm cool with that. So um yeah, and as far as the games goes, yeah, I imagine a launch title is gonna be Metroid Prime 4. I imagine that's gonna be a launch title, and Nintendo will more than likely do what they did for Breath of the Wild, where it was on the Wii U and the Switch. I think we're gonna get that with the Switch 2 and Switch. Prime will be on regular old Switch and also Switch 2. If you want to be an early adopter, cool. If not, cool. Nintendo's still going to give you access to it. And this also, kind of curtails the early adopter syndrome. I don't feel the need to jump on this console when it comes out. I might give it a couple months. I might give it a year because I know that the Switch 2 is going to be backwards compatible. So until we start seeing Switch 2 only games, and there's a Switch 2 only game that I'm interested in personally, I probably won't jump into the Switch 2 right away. I'll let the early adopters get it. I'll let any potential shortages kind of pass me by, just like I did with the PlayStation 5. And then when the stock refreshes, the enthusiasts and diehard they have their consoles. The scalpers get fucked over. Hopefully, I'll just come in and get my console. So that's my personal battle strategy for the Switch 2. Yeah, that's my initial like blah kind of regurgitated take on what this article is talking about and what I want to see from the Switch 2.
Yeah, you definitely raise a lot of points, Gunner. Pretty essentially, one being that Nintendo tends to fall behind when it comes to like hardware, which is absolutely fine in my eyes, but their games tend to be cutting edge, in terms of like gameplay and what they produce for their fan base and whatnot, and also your strategy to wait for the console to hype down in terms of like its release and people going crazy over it and shortages and whatnot, pretty much playing the waiting game. It definitely makes a lot of sense. So who's next? Who else wants to chime in and give their take on the article and stuff?
So I'll quickly go. Mine's going to be very short. Um, Everything Gunnar said and a lot of the points that you said, Esoteric, is kind of where I line up. Just to reiterate it. I'm probably not going to jump on the Switch right away, the Switch 2 right away, because I don't. This doesn't feel like a new console to me. It feels like just an upgrade to the Switch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I still have the base model Switch. I have the latest version of Switch that I have is the Monster Hunter Rise one. That's the last time I bought a Switch console, and if that game didn't have like a Switch specific console release, I honestly would still have my 2017 Switch, which I still own and still works. It's just in my living room instead of my room here. So I don't have an OLED. I didn't see a point in getting an OLED. I don't play on portable mode too often, if at all. Uh, so this next console, considering that they've built such a large user base on the Switch over the last almost 8 years, oh yeah, basically 8 years now,
Yeah,
2017, 2025, yeah,
yeah.
basically 8 years. Um, they'd be foolish to leave that base behind. Uh, so they're gonna continue to support the base Nintendo Switch for at least 2 years, at least, and I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
it's gonna be a lot longer than that. So I don't feel the need to jump on it right away. It's exciting though. New hardware is always exciting. You talk about the LCD screen. That's a cost cutting measure. This thing is basically going to be a Steam Deck because it's about a half an inch bigger than the Steam Deck, and the base Steam Deck has an LCD screen as well. So this is basically the Switch kind of the Nintendo rather keeping up with current market trends because their console. I mean, let's be honest here. Came out in 2017 and was in R&D probably in 2014, 2015. So the Switch is a really old machine in terms
Yeah.
of hardware and like what it can do and its limitations. That like it's painfully obvious when you play certain games. Um, but I mean, it has a lot of potential, and so now that they're inching closer to the PS4 level strength, that's exciting to see. But I mean, they confirm that it's not. They say close to Xbox One, PlayStation 4. They don't say at that level. It's not definitive, so it's still gonna be behind, which it's fine for me because I don't think once we get past PS4 generation, it all feels kind of frivolous. It doesn't mean anything. It's all like
Yeah.
it doesn't have a lot of substance. If we look at like the best PS4 game, like the strongest top tier S tier PS4 games, we're looking at like Red Dead Redemption 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, which is like if we can get anything like that on the Switch, I don't need any more. Like I don't need any more power. Like that's perfectly fine. In fact, that might be too much. Like I might not even want those experiences to be on a portable machine, realistically. So yeah, I'm not nearly as excited. Mainly because we already have the Switch. Uh, this is not new. We did a video in 2020 early set 2017
Hmm. Yeah.
talking about the Nintendo Switch long time ago, and I was super hype about it. I was super excited because it was a new concept. But this there's nothing really new. It's just better of the same thing that we've already had. So yeah, I won't be buying it right away, and I probably won't jump on the Switch 2 train until they come out with their secondary model 3 years from now. So that's my prediction.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like I said, I imagine you're definitely right about the cost cutting LCD method. That's definitely true. And I imagine because Nintendo is notorious for this, and they have been rewarded for it by myself. So I'm not excluding myself from this. Of releasing a console and then having like maybe 2 or 3 iterations of said console.
Yeah.
Honestly, the Switch has been pretty tame when it's come to it. There's pretty much just been there was kind of a there was a new model Switch that had slightly better battery life, but functionally
Yeah, so it
was
was
the
a
same
2017
one.
launch, the 2019 refresh, which with had the better battery life. Then we got the light, and then we got the OLED,
Yeah,
and they're
right.
gonna do the same thing. They have to leave some things off the table for two reasons, like you said. One is cost cutting, and second is to justify a reiteration in order to
Push
revive
sales.
sales.
Yeah.
Once it plateaus a little bit, it's like okay, we need to invigorate the market a little bit. Let's come out with a new model to kind of like give uh, current adopters a reason to reinvest into our hardware. So yeah,
Yeah,
you're for
yeah,
sure correct.
exactly. And it's different than the 3DS days because the 3DS days it was like, oh, look at the screen size of your regular 3DS and now look at the XL. So one can make an argument that like, okay, that's some people might consider that a necessary upgrade. Or the 3DS to the DS was the whole 3D gimmick that some
Yeah.
people went ape shit over.
And then the
But like with the
analog stick as well.
right, well, analog nub,
Yeah.
we had
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
nipple to play with.
Yeah.
Um, so again, that was like that could have convinced a guy who was using Gen 1 OG 3DS to finally upgrade. But for the Switch, it's going to be fundamentally the same console, and I can make a whole paragraph as to why I like OLED screens, but that's not a big upgrade incentive for a lot of people. So, but with the Switch, there's only so much you can do. So we're probably going to see an OLED model down the line. Maybe maybe even a Pro. Nintendo might fiddle around with a potential Pro version of the Switch. Everybody was saying that would happen with the OG Switch, and it never happened. Maybe they might. Maybe they were a little bit too early in the predictions. It might happen with this one down the line, but that's just reading the tea leaves at this point. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense, guys. What are your thoughts on the Switch to Wolf? What's your take on that?
Um, I don't really care. I don't. Much like Kong said earlier, I have the base model from 2017, and I've never bought another model. I never bought a light. I never bought an OLED. I just continued to use my base model. And with it being backwards compatible, Gunnar made a good point too with it, not wanting to rush into it because, in the very least, you have time. It's like how I treat the new iPhones, where I give it time for everybody else to deal with the nonsense. And then once it all settles down, then I go in and I get one for myself. Um, once I get everybody's opinion, once I start seeing more people's opinions of it, or seeing the kind of potential troubles it has, or struggles it may go through, or the constant sales. I remember when I tried to be a first, like, I tried to grab was it the Wii when it first came out, and it was a pain in the royal ass,
Yeah.
and I learned my lesson. So when the Switch came out, I gave it a little bit too. And then a few months down the line is when I got it from when it was first released. And I've had that model and I've played it. Um, I'm happy that they have the controllers backwards compatible. They're backwards compatible with the controllers as well, as long as it's with the Pro controller. Because the Pro controller to me is the only controller I'll ever need if I dock the Switch. I don't use the Joy Cons.
Yeah.
As small as my hands are, I don't like them. Um, yeah, the at first I was a bit disappointed when you read the article and it was saying it could be as powerful as the PlayStation 4 or Xbox. And it was like, I mean, I don't want the Switch 2 to be powerful because I want better graphics. I want it to be powerful because I want better games. Um,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is where Sony and Microsoft don't really deliver on that part. They're more focused on the graphics, not necessarily how deep the game can get by having a powerful console. Um, and I know Nintendo has a tendency of being very uh, meticulous with their games and how deep their games get. As bad as Scarlet and Violet was as a Pokemon entry, they're still very deep games. They are layers on layers on layers if you break it down on the things you can do and how the Pokemon franchise works all together. But regardless of it, I wanted it. I would have. It would have been more reassuring for me to hear them say it is as powerful or a little more powerful than the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox, because then at least I can say, well, I know they're not going to give me. I'm not looking for realistic Final Fantasy graphics. I'm looking for this console is powerful enough to hold a game that is deep, that is it allows options. It's like, let's use Pokemon again. When I first played Gold and Silver, even though the Johto Pokemons themselves is not my favorite, the game being able to travel between two regions, that blew my mind as a kid, because it was like, how powerful is this console to be able to contain two maps, two gyms, two Elite Fours? It was like Gold and Silver was like twice the power of Red and Blue. That's
Mm-hmm.
how I looked at it as a kid, right?
And the
So
night and day feature as well.
plus the night and day features, plus the fact that Entei, Raikou, Suicune was running around the field, which means you can randomly run into them. It was like all these things that the game offered. It seemed it made the it wasn't the Game Boy Color. It made the Game Boy seem more powerful than it really was in comparison to, say, Red and Blue. And
Mm-hmm.
then there was graphics. It was graphically stronger as well because the Pokemon were more defined in Gold and Silver. But the that's what I was hoping for. But then as Gunnar talked and he explained it more, Kong talked and he explained it more. It's like, okay, that does make sense. If it's not as powerful as the PlayStation 4, Kong made a really good point about it being pretty much a Steam Deck. Um, and if it's as powerful as that, then I can only hope that the games are gonna be flavorful, or the games are gonna have some sense of depth to them. I'm not looking for the graphics. I'm really not, but I want better gameplay from the franchises that I love. And I think a more powerful console will be able to grant that. Personally, everything else about it to me is just okay. It's just an upgrade. It's just another Switch. It's gonna come out, and when I get it, I get it. When I don't, I don't. I think when it comes to Nintendo at this point, I'm more focused on not necessarily the hardware they're pushing, but the software. And I want better games. I want Metroid Prime 4 to be very good. And much like Gunnar said already, Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a release for Switch 2 and Switch 1.
Yeah.
Twilight Princess was GameCube and Wii. And then they also did it with Breath of the Wild as well. So it's a trend. They do it. What can we, like that's that.
Well,
um, Even Crystal version was, and I could be wrong, but I do believe Crystal version was compatible with the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color. I don't think Crystal version was exclusive to Game Boy Color. But Nintendo does this. They do that. They'll
That's correct.
come out with a game and
no, you're right. You're right about that.
I said that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Nintendo will do that. They'll take a major franchise or a major release within a franchise and they'll link the two consoles for the games. And I think that's one of the best business practices that any video game company can do, because regardless of it, say if I was one of those people who wanted to jump on the bandwagon right away, I can still play Metroid Prime 4 and have that conversation with Kong, who isn't going to buy the console anytime soon. And the same for Gunnar, who has very little experience with the Metroid series. We can still have that conversation. Like, yeah, I played this game. This is what I experienced, even though I'm already on the Switch too, and he's staying on the Switch. And I think that's a phenomenal thing to do. It helps out people who don't have the money, but it also allows us to say, okay, well, I can't afford a Switch 2 yet, but I can aspire to afford a Switch 2, because in the end of the day, the games that I'm currently buying now will also be compatible moving forward.
Right.
It doesn't make me feel like if I jump consoles, I lose everything in the last 7 to 8 years. So for me, I'm not saying that it's a disappointing console. I don't think it's a disappointing console in any way, shape, or form. I just more concerned on when it comes to Nintendo right now. I just want better for games in the franchise. The hardware is whatever. But I'm looking for better games. So that's why I'm not so excited for it. But I respect it though. I do respect it, and chances are I'm gonna get it regardless. So.
Yeah. Well, one thing I would say Nintendo is pretty good at is fitting a a square peg in a round hole, so to speak. I know that's like usually a negative. It usually has a negative connotation associated with it. But basically, what I'm trying to convey is that Nintendo has a tendency to take the limited resources of their hardware and make games work. Like, you know, their Nintendo Switch was, at the time that it was released, it was behind the the generation, and they still were thriving against them. So I don't doubt that with the Switch 2 that they're going to make a phenomenal library of games. I mean, this console has been out for 8 years, you know, excluding like the light and the OLED, which didn't really make much of a difference because it didn't add hardware to make the games better per se. All they did was make it like aesthetically pleasing. Because what did you get with the OLED? You just got the OLED screen. You got the RJ45 port, the Ethernet port to connect it directly via internet. More storage space, and I think extra battery life. You know, which is all good, but it's not something that I don't think people will be just like jumping out of the bed for, so to speak. The only reason why I have my OLED model is because it's a Legend of Zelda, and I'm a collector, so that was the reason why it was my incentive to get it. But what you three guys said a little while ago pertaining to like the backwards compatibility and not wanting to buy a Switch 2, it kind of sparked a question in my mind, and that's backwards compatibility, excuse me, on consoles. Is that a potential hindrance on their sales? Because honestly, I feel in order for the Switch, based on our mindsets of being a little apprehensive about purchasing the Switch 2 at launch, you would have to have a substantial library to kind of push sales, because I mean, giving the tenure of the first Switch, which again it's been around for going on 8 years, I can't seem to see a lot of people not who don't own a Switch not already wanting one. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I asked, like, do you guys think that having backwards compatibility associated with a console hinders their sales, or is it
No,
just
I don't
like,
think so.
Absolutely not. I can get
Yeah.
into detail, but I
Yeah,
mean, I'll let these guys go.
I'm gonna say my point because I'm pretty sure Kong has numbers to back himself up. My point is just the ideology that everybody has this whole thing of FOMO. So
mhm,
if one person, two people buy it and they're praising the console, everybody's gonna want to buy it. I think when it's new and it's fresh, people are gonna jump on it regardless. And their justification is the fact that it is backwards compatible. So even if they bought the console day one, they don't lose anything because they can continue to play their games
Yeah.
while they wait on Switch 2 games to be released over time. We are just
okay,
an opposite mindset, or just a bunch. We're just a few of the mindsets, and where it's like, okay, well, let's look at it in a different perspective and take our time before we jump into it, because we know that once we get it, we'll still be able to play our old games. I think we're just looking at it differently. But to the majority crowd, nah, they're gonna jump on it. It's the same thing with like iPhones, right?
mhm,
iPhone 15 is the same as iPhone 14 with just a little bit of what firmware update. People jump on it regardless because in the end of the day, they want it. It's new, it's fresh, they want it. So that's how I
Yeah.
look at it.
yeah,
I think Wolf is pretty accurate on that. The fact that it is backwards compatible definitely, for some people, it makes it a no-brainer, because that's the deciding factor for some people, where it's like, oh, is my whole library about to be invalidated or not? And now that we know your whole library will not be invalidated, for some people it's going to go, oh, no biggie, then I can just retire this ancient decrepit Switch and just pick up the new shiny model and continue playing Smash Brothers if that's like your main game, or Splatoon 3 or something. So for some people it's just going to be an easy upgrade. And Nintendo knows that they don't want to hit them with a sticker shock of your library is invalidated and here's a new system that might cost $100 to $150 more than the current Nintendo Switch. So if it remains affordable, which my money it will be, it will be more expensive than the Switch, obviously, but it will still be in that realm of affordability. I don't think Nintendo's going to hit us with the $700 price tag
oh,
like
absolutely
some
not, yeah.
like some other companies in their all-encompassing God, I know everything. Don't be stupid, gamer. Buy my console. So they're not gonna do that. They're gonna, maybe it's 100, maybe 150. I think I could be wrong. Who knows? I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Um, and then and then obviously along the, like, very slowly, the Switch games will start be maybe the Switch games will start becoming Switch 2 games, and you're gonna start needing the Switch 2. And when the inevitable Mario, the inevitable Zelda, the inevitable Pokemon, when those games start hitting the Switch 2, and you have to have a Switch 2, I think those holdouts will finally convert over. The initial rush will more than likely have passed, and it will be easy. Hopefully, Nintendo has learned from the Switch release, so that doesn't even become a problem. But scalpers are a thing. They're more of a thing now than when we were growing up. So we're going to see a bottleneck in Switch 2 sales when it comes out. But once that passes, because it will pass,
Hmm.
people will come into the store. Oh, Zelda Amlet of the Giant Sword is out on Switch 2. I gotta buy it. Here we go. Special edition Zelda version. I'm right there with them online. So
Yeah, that's the easiest way to sucker me into that console.
yeah, yeah. So it's gonna happen. We all know it's gonna happen. Yeah, Wolf is right. We are the abnormal in terms of like overall hashtag consumer. We are the abnormal set where we'll just wait, because now that we know our library is going to be valid, oh cool, I don't feel any apprehension to get this console. I'll just chill. All right, I got a black backlog of Switch games that ain't going anywhere. So I'll just play that, and we'll see how the Switch 2 lines up with updates and patches and whatever hardware kerfuffles the console has, because they all do. So I don't think it's gonna hurt their sales. TLDR, I don't think it's gonna hurt their sales at all.
Gotcha. And what's your take on that, Kong? I know you mentioned it briefly, but you know, before we move on to the next thing, what is your take on it?
Yeah, these guys pretty much hit all the nails on the head. I'll just add that, I mean, historically, here's the thing. We've hit a point in hardware, not just in video games, just in technology as a whole, where we've hit a plateau where we're now. I'm questioning, like, have we hit the point of diminishing returns? Where companies are investing a lot of money in R&D to try to develop new tech and give people reason to go and invest into new hardware. But like, what are we really getting? What's new? And apparently that being a hard hitting question is a problem to me. It's like, well, what's new about it? Well, when they start fumbling and like, well, it has a better camera and it has extra megapixels, and it's like, all right, so there's nothing.
The teraflops.
Yeah, the teraflops. Like, it's like there's new stuff, but it's like the jump between PS1 to PS2, huge. PS2 to PS3, huge. Nintendo to Super Nintendo, huge. Game Boy to Game Boy Advance, huge. Game Boy Advance to Nintendo DS, huge. Right? Those were giant, very measurable leaps. You can see it in the first few seconds of viewing the difference between the two products. Now, not so much, and that's been, I mean, disgustingly fucking clear with the PlayStation 5 Pro presentation, where they're like, look closer. You could see the characters' wrinkles. I was like, get the fuck out of here, bro. Like, what are we even talking about?
$700, please.
So that's why I can emphatically say, yeah, I'm not buying the Switch 2. I will buy the Switch 2 eventually, because it's just an upgrade to my existing growing library. So once they start rolling out the Switch 2 exclusive titles, which will happen eventually, there'll be like a big title, The Witcher 4, on the Switch 2, because the Switch can't run it. So like that'll be like a big push for people to go buy the Switch 2 or whatever. And that's when I will adopt it in 3 years' time. I think in 3 years' time, 2028 is when we'll see the second iteration of Switch. It'll have the OLED screen and excuse me, and we'll have like Switch 2 specific powerhouse titles that are going to sway not just me, but I think the rest of us to really invest into the new hardware. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when I'll buy the Switch 2. They have my money. They just don't have it this year.
Right.
So them, and then this is the point I was going to start with. Historically speaking, them not having backwards compatibility has bitten a lot of different companies in the ass before. Nintendo knows better. The Wii U was backwards compatible to the Wii. The Wii was backwards compatible to the GameCube. I think GameCube was the first time where they didn't have well, not true.
It was the
Nintendo,
GameCube and the
Nintendo.
64, where
it was Super Nintendo to N64 that wasn't, and then N64
also
to
the NES. The NES, you couldn't play NES games on the Super Nintendo.
and then the Game Boy Advance and the Color, I believe.
I think you could with an attachment though. Didn't they sell an attachment that would hold
you could play Game Boy games on the Game Boy Advance.
You can.
Yeah, on the Game Boy Advance, yeah, you could definitely play.
You absolutely could. Yeah.
It would just be weird and stick out like a tablet. Yeah.
I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try this shit in a few.
I mean, I was just like 2 weeks ago playing a Game Boy game on my GBA SP. So I mean,
I could have sworn
you can do it.
Okay, well,
it's just awkward.
It looks weird,
yeah. It sticks out. And then like from DS to 3DS, that was all backwards compatible.
That was all backwards.
GBA to DS, they cut it. They cut it off because whatever, right?
Yeah.
So they know better. There's no reason for that to not be the case. PlayStation 2, the most successful console globally, had backwards compatibility. That was a big selling point for like hardcore gamers. Obviously, the DVD player was a bigger selling point to the casual market, but them doing that, they were able to attack both sides. which equaled tremendous success for them, right? Nintendo knows better. The Nintendo knows the value of having a strong, diverse library of games to launch with. They learned with the Wii U, they learned with the N64, they learned with the GameCube. You need strong launch titles.
Hmm.
I have a
Period.
quick.
But
I have a
that's
question.
why. Oh, go ahead, Wolf.
No, it's I'll ask after you say your topic because it may pivot the conversation. So I'd rather just ask it after you make your point.
Okay, so that's the reason why I asked that because with the backwards compatibility, right? Like with the PlayStation 2, along with it, they had quite a nice library of games solely on the PS2, you know. And then if it's not just a nice library of games, it's also hardware or let's be real, it's um gimmicks because honestly, like you could have played Twilight Princess on the GameCube, but a lot of people probably were more inclined to getting the Wii because they wanted to swing the damn Wiimote around and get that experience. So it's like I don't. The reason why I asked that question is because with the Switch 2, as we all pretty much concluded that it's just there's going to be no, according to our speculations, there's going to be no further gimmicks. What you see is what you get with the Switch 1. That's what you're going to get with the Switch 2 apparently, but a little more enhanced. So it's like our thoughts would be what is the point, because we're going to be able to play
Well,
some of the new
the
titles,
point is to keep
but
is to stay competitive. They have to
Mm-hmm.
release something. So whether it would be the
Mm-hmm.
Switch Pro, the Switch 2, it's one and the same, really. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter what it's called. It's to stay competitive in the market. This machine has been out for 8 years now. It's about time we get an upgrade. They again, it goes back to the diminishing returns and hitting the plateau. There
mhm.
is nothing technologically that I can fucking fathom that would be considered as new as motion controls in 2006 or the graphical overhaul of like from 1999 to
Yeah,
2005. Like
absolutely, I agree
there's
with that.
nothing that exists now that none of us could fathom that will equate to that. So they have to, like, they would hurt themselves if they didn't. In
Mm-hmm.
an alternate universe, if they release a Switch 2 where it's like new system, new games, your old game, sorry, we have a product for you. It's called the Switch, right? If they pull a Don Matrick and tell you to get an Xbox 360, then that would ultimately hurt them because then now I'm not buying your console. Like, unless you convince me in years' time, like now I have no reason. Like now it's like okay, like they would build a bitterness with their user base, and they don't want that.
Oh
So
yeah,
it only
absolutely,
makes
absolutely,
sense.
yeah.
And for Sony, for as pig-headed as Sony is, for them to lean on the PS4 backwards compatibility, that's because they had to. Because if they didn't,
Huh.
the PlayStation
What would
5
be
would
the
have
point?
flopped
What would be
harder
the
than it
point
did.
of owning the five? Like,
Well, everybody here and anybody listening to this knows at least or has met at least one person that regrets buying the PlayStation 5 launch year. 100%,
if
because a lot of those people have bought the consoles triple market value,
okay,
Oh
$1,500.
if
yeah.
So
I
talk
did
to those
not
guys
get
now and
Oh,
tell
they
me if it was
crazy.
worth it.
Yeah,
if
they're
I didn't
crazy.
get the PS5 under your Connect, I would not own a PS5. I still don't see a reason to own the PS5. Like,
I personally only got a PS5 because I knew Monster Hunter was coming out, and I was like,
And
well,
yeah.
that's it.
yeah,
Honestly, if
but
the
that's what I'm
PS5,
saying.
if that wasn't the case, I still wouldn't own a PS5. I got my PS4 Pro
Mm.
right there, and it's still hooked up, ready to go.
And
So
I really haven't played like games on the PS5. Like I have games for the PS5, but I haven't really played games for
lackluster.
the PS5,
I
right?
played a lot of PS4 games on my
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I played a
PS5.
lot of PS4 games. Like even right now, okay. I think my first true dedicated PS5 game is Black Ops. Like I'm playing that on a regular. All the other ones, it's like I loaded
And
up for
that could run on a
Thanksgiving and that's it.
PS4.
And that okay, there you go. See, I didn't know that. Never
So
mind.
what are we even, like what are we really talking about right now? The only true PS5 game, Dragon's Dogma 2, I
Yeah.
guess.
I mean, they have a few, but it's not.
Go ahead.
It's
Go
still
ahead.
not enough.
No, we got time. Go ahead.
All right, so okay, we have Final Fantasy Rebirth. We have Dragon's Dogma 2. Um, I mean, can't say Ratchet and Clank because that could have definitely been on the 4. Um, Yeah, well, Silent Hill could have been on the 4 too,
Spider-Man
kinda.
2.
Well, yeah, you could say
Fuck, I'm
Spider-Man
not- You're
2.
not doing
Which
Um,
I can tell you this.
Nah,
My son, my
Spider-Man 2
son,
could have been on the
my son.
PS4.
That's what I'm
100%.
saying. My son is
100%.
playing Spider-Man 2 right now, and I watch him play, and it's like this game doesn't look any different. It doesn't look any more powerful. It doesn't look like it performs any better than its PlayStation 4 predecessors. It doesn't look anything different. It's just like, okay, well, we just made Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation 5 because we need you to buy a PlayStation 5. And it's Spider-Man, he'll sell. That's just the way I look at it when I watch him play. And it's like this game doesn't, because I'm looking for like things that I've heard that they've made major changes to, which yes, the characters were kind of redesigned, like Miles Morales having that new ridiculous haircut or style. Peter looks even weirder than he did in the last game. Um, the females, I guess, have been toned down in their appearance. These are things that I notice, yeah, but when he's playing it, like he's moving around with his avatar, it doesn't feel or look any different than a PlayStation 4 title. It's like this could have easily been on the PlayStation 4, but they need a reason for people to upgrade to the PlayStation 5. And I know Spider-Man, the original game, was a very successful video game. So, but at the end of the day, I don't see a reason to own it. I think this month would be the month that I would have bought a PlayStation 5 if Kong did not have that connection for me to get a PlayStation 5 when I did. It would be this month that I'm buying a PlayStation 5 to prepare myself for Monster Hunter. That's the way
Okay.
I look at it.
Very true. So I don't have anything else to like really add to that. I feel like I've said everything I need to say and then some. But I know Wolf had a question to follow up that he felt would have pivoted the conversation in a
Yes.
different direction. So I don't know, Esoteric, it's up to you if you wanted to.
well, yeah, you can.
Anything else to say about the backwards compatibility or what?
Oh, no. We will be beating a dead horse. So yes, you can speak on your question briefly, Wolf, because we're almost going over time. So
Okay.
yeah.
I just wanted to know what you guys' opinion is on why the Switch is so successful. Because
It makes great games.
the way but here's the thing. Because I look at the games that comes out for the PlayStation 5, the Xbox. What is it? What Xbox is this?
Series
One?
X,
Sony
Series X.
One?
Series X.
Okay.
There you go. One's the old one. Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Series X, and I look at them and they push out these billions of dollars for these AAA games over and over and over again, but yet they're not breaking records the way the Switch is. And when you look at the Switch games, they're obviously great games in their own respect, but it doesn't seem like, how can I put it? It's the same games that we've been getting since what, 1980 something, right?
Well, that's because
So
they're actually
what
games.
is that what everybody feels? Like what is
So
the how can I put it? What is the I guess the secret ingredient that Nintendo has that Sony and Microsoft just not getting?
okay, so I'll go first. I think what it is the fact that Microsoft and Sony are fixated on building cinematics. Their focus is more on cinematics as opposed to gameplay. Like if you look at anything on the Switch, you barely get cutscenes in those games. You get good gameplay. You know, you play Legend of Zelda, you play Mario. You might their cutscenes will go per segment maybe 15-20 seconds long, give or take. Whereas every minute in most of like Sony or Microsoft's games, there's like some type of 10 to 15 minute cutscene or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And there's more, in my opinion, there's more innovation with Nintendo. With Nintendo, you're getting like games first and foremost that we all grew up and most of us loved, familiar faces, and the gameplay kind of pays homage to what we grew up on. Like if anybody from the 90s till now, if they see a Mario game, they'll know it's a Mario game. Whereas with Sony and like Microsoft, not so much. And not to mention, they also don't really pay much attention to the current games that the games that put them on the map to begin with. Like, when was the last time we got a Sly Cooper? When was the last time we got a Jack and Daxter? Haven't heard of Twisted Metal in a while. What is it? Vigilante 8, Then they had intriguing games like Spider. They had one. They had that other intriguing game with the dude that's making that funny noise, and he's always having like a series of bad luck. I always forget the name of it, and I want to play that game so bad because it's freaking amazing.
I think it's called Incredible Crisis.
Oh, I don't even remember. I'll check it out.
That's what it's called.
I'll look into it. But yeah, I just think that Nintendo just makes genuine games. They make genuine games. That's pretty much what it is. It's they know what the people want. They build very good interactions with their audience instead of having people just watch a screen. They having them press buttons and interact with the character most of the time. So that's my take on it. I just think that Nintendo, who's been in the game the longest, just makes better games as a whole. So
3 words: options, legacy, and quality. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
That's why.
Mm-hmm.
You want to play your console portably? We have an option for you. You want to play a home console? We have an option for you. You want third-party controls? We have an option for you. You want a Joy-Con? We have an option for you. You want a more classic controller? We have an option for you. You want to play classic games? We have an option for you. You want to play modern games? We have an option for you. Legacy? Who has more legacy than Nintendo, right? And then quality. Who has better quality titles from a gameplay perspective than Nintendo? Nobody. Sony can hit those marks, but like Esoteric said, when was the last time we got an Ape Escape, Sly Cooper, Jack and Daxter? Take your pick, right? They have legacy, they refuse to use it, right? Because they're busy chasing the dragon. So keep chasing the dragon off the fucking cliff into bankruptcy. I'll see you down there, and I'll be laughing at you as you go down. Because I ain't buying a fucking PlayStation 6. That's for damn sure. That's it.
Any input, Gunner?
Yeah, I mean, no, pretty much that. It's just they have some of the most memorable, iconic, and standout franchises in the world. You have people in the Mumbai desert who know who Mario is. So Zelda has gotten me to spend more money on official merchandise that I have for realistically any game franchise. I own a separate Nintendo Switch that is still in the box just because it's a Zelda Switch. I'm not even using it. I have a perfectly good working one that I use every day, but I bought one because it's Zelda. Only Zelda can get me to do something like that. So
And Warhammer.
I just think, and Warhammer, but hey, they do something with Switch and they make a Warhammer Switch, I'm buying that, hands down. Day one. If it's the Switch 2, I'm buying it day one. But that probably won't happen. But no, they're like the quality of the games. I feel like Nintendo is still one of the few companies that are willing to publish games that aren't legacy titles. I know we just talked about legacy titles, but it feels like so much modern game media is either a sequel or a reimagining or a remake of something, and Nintendo still every now and then they'll put out a good game that is not a Mario game, not a Zelda game, and Nintendo feels like they're the only ones that still do that.
Well, Gunner, I gotta say about Nintendo, when it comes to reimagining, they are the kings. They can take the same content that they've created for like 20 plus years and revamp it to something seemingly brand new. Like, how many new Super Mario's out there? Like, how many people are still buying freaking Mario Kart 8? Like, it's
that blows.
It's
my
crazy.
Mind.
It is. It's. I mean,
that logic alone of Mario Kart being on every console that's come out after its release and still being one of the best sold games that Nintendo have right now. That just blows my mind. Like,
Yeah,
when will it end?
but that's the thing though, right? Because
It
Nintendo,
will never end because why is fried chicken wings so good? Because the shit tastes good. It's awesome. It's great. Why do you keep eating chicken? Because it's great. What do you mean? Why am I eating chicken? It's fucking delicious.
and
That's why.
and the good thing about Nintendo is that they're
Very
known
simple.
to
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo is good at building on that recipe. They'll pull
Mm-hmm.
something from, like, let's give an example, like let's go back to Mario Kart 8. They'll take something from the Super Nintendo Mario Kart and incorporate it into the current build of 8, and people are losing their freaking minds. Like, they're good at reinventing the wheel. They're good at maintaining
That's
the base.
wrong. They're not reinventing the wheel. They're
They're
just producing
re-releasing
the
it.
wheel. That's it. They're not reinventing shit. They're giving you the same wheel, but it's better somehow.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, but in some senses, in terms of their particular wheel, they're
When it
kind of
comes to
sort of,
hardware innovation, they reinvent the wheel for sure, because they've done
Mm-hmm.
it
yeah,
numerous
I agree
times,
with that.
right?
Yeah.
yeah.
They do it for sure. With their software, they have a formula. They go, this works. Why stray from it? Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
we'll experiment, but like
Mm-hmm.
Zelda 2, why did we stray away from the first Mario 2? Why the fuck did we make this Mario 2? Like, go back to the original. Like,
Mm-hmm.
come on. And there's one more point that I wanted to bring up before
Hmm.
we end.
Mm-hmm.
It's not confirmed yet, but there's rumors that, and this is a concern for me, because I like the fact that Switch has everything's local. You buy a Switch cartridge, the game is on there. There might be updates, but it's optional. Most games you could just pop in and just go play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Switch 2, there's rumors or there's rumblings that it's using AI scaling technology. And what that means is, in order for it to play certain games, I'm blurry.
Yeah.
In order for it to play certain games, it has to connect to a server in order to feed. It's like cloud gaming in a way.
Hmm.
So there's a chance that there's going to be titles that aren't local on the Switch, and that
Oh,
might
okay.
be a regular thing.
That's probably third
Yeah.
party. I think that would be more third party stuff.
So that's something that concerns me, because a lot of modern games, like, like Call of Duty Black Ops, you mentioned that, like, that's not you buy the disc and it doesn't mean anything. The disc is just a launcher.
I
You have
think
to download the full game.
I think that's how Kingdom Hearts is for the current
Correct.
Yes,
Switch
that's
now.
exactly how it is. Yeah.
Correct. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a chance that that'll be the norm, in order to save. It's a cost cutting measure, because now they don't have to buy the biggest cartridges anymore. Now they could depend on servers in order to carry
I
the
hope
weight of the
not.
water.
I think I don't
Well,
think
I
they're gonna do
think
that with their
I
That's
main
something
game.
that could
So
happen.
I
right?
don't
So,
think
yeah.
so the reason why I don't think that it's a possibility as to them doing that is more so because of the fact that
you
it's
don't
a
think it's a possibility?
no. So hear me out. Hear me out. It is a possibility, but what I'm saying that it's highly unlikely due to the fact that two things. I think because the console is portable, and also because it's geared for mostly for kids. So it's like I
What
don't
does that
think
matter?
I don't because of that I don't
Most people have Wi-Fi. Most of our devices in modern day are portable. Our phones are portable, and
Mm-hmm.
you can't do shit. Really, you can't do much without internet connection.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but
Kids
you
have access to modern technology. I see little babies with fucking iPads, and the moment they see a screen, the first thing they're doing is touching the shit. So they've already been conditioned to what modern technology is and how it works. So I see it absolutely happening
I think it's
no,
a
eventually.
it makes
50-50.
I see what you're saying, but what I'm saying is okay, with the phones, you still have online capabilities outside of your home network. In order for Nintendo to like do that, they would have to incorporate something kind of like what phone services do to do that. I mean, they can do it, but
See,
I think it's
I
unlikely.
would side with you more if the PlayStation Portal didn't sell as well as it did, because I thought that that device was dead on arrival, but it did pretty all right, good enough to justify its existence and to justify the Sony continuing to support it, even though it's a fucking scam.
Yeah, but the
So
market base
Mm-hmm.
the
are
fact that that
adults. I don't
exists and
know.
people have bought into it tells
Mm-hmm.
me that th- them relying on servers and cloud gaming and AI scaling or whatever the fuck it's called, that that's a strong possibility. Like it may not be right away, but I already see the writing on the wall. And if it's gonna save the company money, I'm pretty sure in
That's
the
why I
executive
would see
meetings they're gonna be like, "Give me a reason not to do this again." For the
I
old guys, fuck those guys. Like they're not. Sorry, go ahead, Wolf. I'm
no, I'm
done though.
saying
That's it.
that's why I can agree with you on that respect when it comes to the financial aspect of it. I can agree with you on them eventually going that route. However, going back to what I was saying earlier about their video games not being so powerful, I don't see them doing it, at least for their main titles, in that respect,
That's
because
fair.
their main titles don't need that much power to run. But I do see like third party companies coming in wanting to do it so that they can get their games on the Switch and utilizing that type of technology.
Yeah, that's what Soteric
Um,
mentioned. He mentioned third
yeah,
party, which I
Yeah.
agree with both of you guys on
yeah,
that. It'll be third party first,
right.
and they'll
Yeah.
do it the hardest than anybody else. True.
Yeah, they'll do it the hardest.
Yeah.
But I will never, ever, 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 as someone who understands the financial field, I will never say that they will never do it, because if it's going to save them 3 pennies on whatever dollar they spend to make the content, I, they're gonna sign that contract.
What?
They're going to.
And another point, Nintendo is so hard on fighting piracy and emulation and all these other things, and like the
Good point.
last handful of like first party titles have been leaked online weeks before launch. Mario and Luigi Brothership, um, the Echoes of Wisdom got leaked early online, and people were emulating it on their computers. And that's because the retail copies made it out to the wild and or in the Amazon facility or whatever, and somebody fucking dumped the files online, and that's because the files are local on disk or on cartridge, and that to them it's like that's another incentive to like, you know what, this cloud gaming thing, this is another layer of protection for our IPs. So that's another reason, that's a reason to do it, right? So that's why I'm really like pessimistic about the whole deal,
Mhm.
because it's like I can't think of a reason from a business perspective to not lean on those new options to distribute the games. So
Well,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
see
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. But one thing is for certain that Nintendo has a tendency to kind of go against the grain when it comes to even options that would be fiscally
not if
sound.
it's gonna cost them money.
Yeah.
Mistakes
Nintendo
are
loves paper.
Yeah,
expensive,
I
and
agree. If
they
mm,
ain't gonna.
mm, yeah,
I don't know. I
I
think
definitely agree with that. And then also you got to think about they're gonna want to make any kind of profit back from whatever they had to take a loss on, if they need to take a loss on anything. So I will never say that's not out of the realm of exploration for them. I will never say that.
it okay.
Switch 2, calling it now, is
Mhm.
launching at 429 later this year.
Probably, yeah. Probably, yeah.
I'd
Well, how
imagine.
much is a regular Switch now? How much is the OLED?
Like two and change,
350.
right? Oh,
250?
Three no, 350. 350 for the OLED, 300 for the base Switch, 200 for the Switch Lite, and the base model Steam Deck is 400. This will be 429.
Okay, yeah, I agree
I
with
see
that
it.
price.
I could,
I
yeah,
see it.
I could see it being that price.
Also, I just
Mhm.
wanted to quickly mention I was reading the article. I know we're short for time, so we don't have to get into it. But according to the Polygon article we've been referencing, apparently there's rumors that Microsoft and Sony are also reportedly getting into the handheld market.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
might see a PSP resurgence and an Xbox Master Chief portable. I don't know. So I think Nintendo's not dead, but the portable market between the Steam Deck and the Ally and things of that ilk, and with how wildly successful the Switch has become, definitely is telling other people, the other two, because there's only big three console makers, that portable is a thing. It's not as dead as we think. So who knows? The waters might be getting a little spicier in the near future when the PSP comes back from the dead, and maybe Microsoft releases a banger portable. So just something to think about. That is those
Yeah.
those two guys are reportedly in the wings.
Yeah,
I'll give my opinion after the podcast.
yeah, I did see that that the PSP might make a resurgence. In regards to Xbox, I'm kind of shocked if they do kind of pursue that avenue because their Microsoft their operating system runs most of the handhelds currently in the market. So they have like Xbox Game Pass or whatnot. So for them to make a system, a proprietary system, in my opinion, would be kind of counterproductive. But you never know, right? You know,
Yeah.
it can be done. It's like kind of pick your poison type of deal. Um, but yeah, we kind of went over, gents.
Yeah, I
I
didn't want to.
disagree, but I won't get into it.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I just wanted to throw that out there because it is in the article that we are referencing for the video, and it does need to be mentioned that that is a thing
Mhm.
that's happening in the game world.
All right.
Mhm.
But we can wrap it up. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, gents, for another exciting episode of the Logicast. We were speaking on the Nintendo Switch 2. For those of you who are tuning in, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you enjoy our past content or looking forward to future content that we put out, hit that subscribe button. We release episodes every Wednesday at 12 p.m. EST. And also hit the bell notification. If you're lazy and you don't want to check at 12 p.m., you'll get that notification on your device letting you know that we put out a new episode. Also, we'd love to hear your comments. Let us know what you think about the Nintendo Switch 2. Is it a day one buy? What kind of bells and whistles you would like for the system to incorporate in it? Do you think the LCD screen is trash and they should have incorporated a OLED screen? Yeah, we'll love to hear from you guys. Let us know. Also, check out my stream. I stream on Twitch. The handle is Logical Gamers TV. I'm primarily on 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. EST on Mondays and Fridays. And I also tend to incorporate some impromptu streams as well. And follow all our social media platforms is right below the reference footage. All those symbols that you see, our at Logical Gamers TV, that is where we have all our content. So be sure to follow each and every one that associates with you. And we look forward to having you join our community. So with that being said, once again, thank you, panelists. You guys have a wonderful rest of your night. And last but certainly not least, if it ain't gaming, it ain't logical, folks. Peace.
Later.
Later.